Some comments back on your essay. Hopefully help you a little bit in revision here. Let's see. Let's start with formatting first things first. We want to get this guy. We want everything to be in a Times New Roman. Okay. So everything's a Times New Roman and 12-point font. Okay. And we don't need that little dash right there. So let's see. Most of this looks good. We just want to take this. A lot of this stuff is just a little technical stuff. The only reason I do this is because I've been doing it for so long that that's how MLA likes it. We want to get rid of this extra spacing. That's fine. And then I'm gonna select all. Actually, first I'm gonna take it, put everything in a 12 for you, and then put it into a Times New Roman. There. And that's what we want to see. Okay. I'm going to check your other spacing. Okay, so after we want 0, we want everything double. 0, 0, 0. Alright, so that did change the essay around a little bit. So, okay. Let's go to your... We're excited. Now this, we want to get rid of this extra spacing. Okay, and we also want to get rid of these URLs. I don't actually need those. MLA doesn't require that you give those to me. It leaves it up to the instructor whether they want them or not, and I don't want them. Okay. And I will leave you to go back through and do this. Get rid of the space for the rest of these. This is centered, which is where you want it. The only thing I had to say about your sources was that we want to put an author's name on here. Okay, it just isn't that credible if you don't have a person's name. So whether you get an editor, a site manager, something like that, get a human being's name on it, and that's going to make it much more credible. And that's what we want. You want to be able to pin this to a human being, especially right here. I know ESPN does a lot of mystery writing. It's actually not very credible. There's only a couple of reasons you would ever want to not put your name on something. One reason is because it's really old and we don't actually know who wrote it. But if it's ESPN, that's pretty recent. We know who wrote it. Or if you're writing from a country that you could be punished if they found out that you wrote it. And I don't actually think... I mean, I get pretty into college football, but I wouldn't go hunt somebody down because they wrote a crazy article. So, got to get some names on them. Alright, so... You talk about the BCS, can it be replaced? That doesn't actually... We know what the topic is, but we don't actually know what your slant is, what you're going to argue for. And you want to let us know that in the title. Okay, that's really important. So you start out, Louisiana State, Alabama. 2 teams chosen. Even though the Bowl Champion Series claims to be more beneficial to the NCAA than a playoff system would be, there seems to be more evidence saying that a playoff system would be more constructive. Tough thing about your essay is people are going to argue about it, but the thing is, we in 2014 they're already switching to a playoff system that'll start in 2014. So we only got to wait a year or two. So, does that make your essay obsolete? I don't know. I mean, because basically, the Bowl Champion Series is a good system, but the playoff appears to be a better way to go. To create an undisputable national champion. Deniably has a great formula. So, I mean, your argument is pretty good. You acknowledge the opposition, which I like that. You give quite a bit of information on each, why people want a champion. But I think people are still going to argue about this. There are still people that are going to argue that the old way of doing it was better. So I guess perhaps this could be something that's still viable. But I'm going to push you in revision to really think about that. since we already have a decision, since it's being switched, where does your essay stand in this big conversation that people are having? Okay, let's see. Been around since '97, matching top 2 teams nationally. Let's see. Question whether a bowl championship. I was just trying to find. There's a spot I should have marked it. Where did it go? Basically, I mean, you do a lot of reporting in here too, and so what you want to do is you're arguing for a playoff, and a lot of people do that, and a lot of people say, well, we just want one champion, and they leave it at that. But I think your essay is going somewhere a little bit deeper. Why do we want one champion? What's the benefit of that? A lot of people like the system the way it is because there's no playoff. It just, the teams train for one game. But then a lot of other sports, I mean, you got to really think about why they do it the way they do it right now. The students are allowed to train at their school. It's not as disruptive as a bowl where they're going away, every week to go play somewhere. But they do it this way, I think, and the biggest argument is that, so you have 2 really healthy teams coming at each other, because the season ends in November and some of these teams play in January. So, most injuries that, aren't season ending or career ending are going to be healed by then. So you're going to have a full team and they want to juice these guys up and smack heads against each other, which is cool. We like that idea, but maybe you want to take this back to the roots of football. I mean, it's a game of persistence. It's a game of relentlessness. It's a game of testing. Can you line up to the line every play and give it your best every time they blow that whistle? And so when you think about it in a tournament style, it's kind of like that. Can you come every week in the postseason and give it your best? I mean, it really reflects like that. And actually, a playoff would actually reflect the values of football and what it is to play football better than the system they have now. The system they have now is more like, the best metaphor would be like special teams. You have these guys that their only goal is to, take out whoever. I mean, some teams, some of the starters on offense and defense play on the special teams, but often you'll have one guy designated as the kick return, and that's all he does. And so, he saves up himself the whole game just to do this, which is kind of like the system we have now. So you want to relate this thing to something bigger. Because just to have one national champion, that's not really enough. You want to make this bigger. You're also talking about academics, right? You have these scholarly athletes, okay, and what's at the best interest for them. Not everyone's going to go on and play professional football. A lot of them are, going to take their degree and go work a job and be successful at what they do there. Some of them will not get a degree and they will not be successful at anything they ever do because all they've thought about is sports. So I think one of the best arguments that you can put forth is, in the spirit of football, what's the best for the game? But even more important than that, for the student athlete, what is the best for the student? It has nothing to do with the fans, because when we start playing up to the fans, then comes the argument, oh, we should pay these guys to play, and it's like, well, that's not what they're there for. They're there because they're so good at their sport that they do, and they're so good at their academics that they can do both really well. And so we should prize them for that. And we should also put something in play that's going to be most advantageous for them. You can admit that the current system that we have now with the BCS is, the voting is the best system because it offers, the college student the best opportunity to study and, do whatever. Or maybe not. I don't know. Because they kind of get into a routine during the fall, and so there's that whole schemata that you want to talk about and comment on. I'm rambling on here, but I like this idea. I know some of my colleagues would probably tell a student not to argue for this, but it really has really big implications. It's much deeper than just BCS or playoff, because each one of them brings so much to it. Each one's trying to do something, and I do like the complexity and your conclusion that you came to. When you talk about the Bowl Championship Series has a great formula. Well, it also has some other great things to it. Think about the student athlete in revision, okay? And so when you do that, when you think about the spirit of football, which shouldn't be your primary, that should be your secondary. Primary should be the student athlete, okay? What's best for the student athlete, okay? If you can argue that the playoff is best for the student athlete, you are well on your way to winning this argument. If you can argue that the playoff is best for the spirit of football in the game, you are well on your way to winning this argument. And so, in your title, I think you'd want to address that stuff. Because, basically this essay, it's not about pleasing me, it's not about pleasing you, it's about pleasing the college. The college wants to see you put forth an argument, state an argument, throw it out there, do the research, which you've done, okay? You just got to get some authors and people names on there. And then use that research to back up that opinion that you've boldly stated. And so you want to get that opinion across quickly in the title. You want to get that opinion across quickly here. And then you want to just systematically argue through those points to show that everything you set up here is true. Okay? So admit where the BCS has some good spots. It does. Otherwise, we wouldn't be using it right now. If it was all trash, we wouldn't be using it. So admit, what are those little fingers, right? When someone's holding on to something, there's those few last fingers that hang on when the grip is being pulled away. What are those few fingers that the BCS is still gripping to college football? Why is it, still here? It's got to have some ups. But a lot of people are scared to switch, and there's all kinds of reasons they talk about. They talk about money, right? Money is a big thing, because sports make colleges a lot of money. They also cost colleges a lot of money. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about, and you do a pretty good job. But you can give pointed examples of different schools, but really you want to get on the issue of what's best for the student, what's best for the spirit of football, what's best for the college itself, right? Because if colleges make 50% of their budget from these sporting events, well, maybe a playoff, isn't going to do it. But I don't think that's the case. I think a college is going to make quite a bit of money in a playoff system. I think they'll actually make more. Because rather than Alabama or LSU getting one game, they get a game every week, right? And so, but we'll see what happens when they switch. But you got to think about that too, because people are going to be cutting down this playoff system, right? They cut it down in basketball, and you might want to look at the NCAA basketball playoffs and what the negative things people have to say about that. That may help you strengthen your argument for a playoff for football, okay? Because you still have athletes playing in a long season, and in a long, their tournament is huge, okay? The BCS tournament is not going to be that big, but it will take weeks. So check out all that stuff. I'm going to post this thing. I'm sorry if I went on too long, 14 minutes. Oh, man, that's 9 minutes too long. I'm sorry. But anyway, man, you got a great start. So I'm excited to see how this ends up in the final. If you have any questions, let me know. Or come see me in my office hours or shoot me an email. Or see me after class. I think I already said that.